This is clearly a worrying time for, as it were, the traditional automotive manufacturing sector, with those figures coming out from the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, worst in 66 years. Is the game up, in your view?
No, I don't think the game's up. I think we're at a generational shift, more than generational, a century shift. You know, the internal combustion engine's been around for 100 plus years, and the world is moving to electric vehicles. Now, that's a massive transition. And if you overlay that with the challenges of the last 2 or 3 years, where the pandemic has absolutely hammered supply chains, manufacturers could not get components. We've all heard the words chip. Well, many other components weren't available either. And then you had the war in Ukraine, which is one of the world's biggest providers of wiring looms. These are the things that distribute the electrical power around all cars, not just EVs, all cars. And you put that together with now a recession, and you've got massive forces acting negatively on the motor industry. But that said, you know, some companies are doing really quite well, and some of the super premium brands have actually increased production and increased profitability. So it's not the end of the road. It is, but it is absolutely a transition.
How shocked were you by the collapse into administration of British Volt when we talked about it on the programme a couple of weeks ago with a number of people, some of whom were experts in the supply chain and general industrial observers, was that it looked like a slam dunk proposal in the sense that they had high technology people involved in it. Government had said, if you can get foreign investment, private investment, we will match it from taxpayer resources. And everybody knows that we need to have more batteries being made in this country because that's the way forward for the automotive sector. Did you see it coming, or were you shocked and disappointed and dismayed that that was the final outcome?
I think I was shocked by some of the stuff that came out afterwards. I mean, let's put this in context. This wasn't a fully operating business. It doesn't even exist. There is a piece of land in the northeast of England where British Volt were going to build a factory. And, of course, to do that, it's a startup. You've got to raise money. You've got to create an interest amongst investors and then build the business. So what shocked me were some of the stories that came out that the business really didn't have the leadership necessary and didn't apply itself in a way that would have how I would normally run a startup. You know, when we run startups, and I've built about 15 of them now, it's a very lean operation and we move very quickly. British Volt didn't seem to do that. And I think more than anything, I'm disappointed because if we're going to increase vehicle production in the UK, then that production has to be electric vehicles, and electric vehicles need batteries. And manufacturers of cars will only operate in locations where they can get a ready supply of components. And batteries are a critical component of EVs. So I think it's a disappointment because it sets the whole process back a year or two. You know, a lot of big companies are looking again at the land and at the idea and at the business plan. But I don't think there's any doubt it's put the whole project back by 12, 18, 24 months, which is a shame.
As an entrepreneur and a hugely successful individual, did you understand the Chancellor of the Exchequer when he said getting inflation down is the best tax cut that we can give to ordinary folk?
Yes, I did, actually, because we're all facing whatever today's number is, 8, 10, 12% inflation, depending on what sector you're looking at. And if you can reduce that to 2%, alleged target, you're effectively giving back people 10% of their spend. Now, giving people back 10% of their net income is really very challenging through the tax regime. So I understand what he's trying to do, but I think it will take some time to filter through. And of course, who's in control of inflation? Well, the government are certainly not, but the economy will follow the demand of consumer interest, consumer spending power. So I understand what he's doing. But I think it's a very challenging approach. What I did like was the focus on enterprise and employment and education, because one of the things that I spend my life doing now is building an organization called Smarter Britain. And Smarter Britain is about helping people to start companies, helping young people predominantly to start companies.